Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and yeah, this can't be real, Alex. You're spot on. Look, I had so much to talk about Dr. Moore, who went off about Johnny's hand as if he was there when he wasn't. We're going to have to save that for our after show. I wanted to focus on Wayne Dennison's just a brilliant takedown before Dr. Spiegel even begun, because even before Dr. Spiegel, who was speaking a psychiatric on behalf of Johnny Depp without ever once speaking to Johnny Depp, they did a brilliant rebuttal even before he began speaking, which you could tell made the doctor unnerved, uneasy before everything begun. We're going to have to play that as well after the after show. No, Dr. Spiegel's testimony was so frustrating. He spoke for 45 minutes. The defense guy says 8 hours. Before today started, they had 8 hours, while Johnny's team is 18 hours. And they spent half of the day talking to these experts that Johnny's team just torched. Just completely torched. But Dr. Spiegel's who I want to focus on mostly because people are already digging up this guy's past. Yes, they're calling him Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. My kids watched that ages ago, but I wasn't as... But anyway, Dr. Doofenshmirtz is the perfect example, even though I wasn't a huge fan of the show. How can you not see the similarity here of their... Anyway, while the memes are coming in, look, guys, I don't want to get distracted on the memes. Let's get distracted on the reality. A lot of reviews are coming in about this guy, about his past. Really, really bad reviews. This is not from Johnny fans. This is 3 years ago, before he was even up there. There are countless more. We'll go through some of them. What I want to focus on is when they came back for Cross, Wayne was ready. And man, Wayne destroyed this guy. Not only did he destroy this guy, as Kim was telling me in the text, I feel like he destroyed Dr. Hughes and everybody the defense has put up to try and discredit Johnny, because they brought up the Goldwater Rule, which is something this doctor opened up. Now, what is the Goldwater Rule? Goldwater Rule is a statement of ethics, first issued by the American Psychiatric Association in 1973, restraining psychiatrists from speculating about the mental state of public figures. The rule enjoins psychiatrists from professionally diagnosing someone they have not personally evaluated. Then that last part is crucial. Johnny was never forced to meet with this guy. He's a paid worker for Amber Heard. He's testified, as Wayne pointed out, he's spoken on behalf multiple times. Why would Johnny want to go speak to this guy who's clearly biased? Well, this whole issue of the Goldwater Rule came up during the Cross. And I want to share this with you because I think it's incredibly important, and we're going to discuss more in detail tonight. But here we go.
Was the Goldwater Rule.
Yes, sir.
This is an ethical rule, right?
It is an ethical rule. And yes, it's ethical. They say rules. It's an ethical guideline. Yes, they're guidelines.
Over time, the American Psychiatric Association has amended the rule, so it's not just about diagnoses, but it's also about professional opinions. Let me read this and see if you're familiar with it. It is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual based on publicly available information without conducting an examination. That's the rule, right?
If you're reading it directly, I will believe you.
Okay. However, a diagnosis is not required for an opinion to be professional. So my question is, it's not just diagnosis that this Goldwater Rule applies to, it's professional opinions.
If that was the case, there could be no expert witness testimony in the courtroom.
Nice deflection.
Psychiatrists are ethically prohibited from evaluating individuals without permission or other authorization, such as a court order. That's the rule, right?
This whole thing on we might as well get rid of all the expert witnesses we've had throughout all of time. You are essentially saying that unless someone has directly evaluated it, this whole medical system we have, this whole legal system we have, is null and void.
I'm not saying...
No, yes, you are, sir. No, you are.
Give me a second.
So I am a member of the APA. That doesn't necessarily mean every single thing they put in there, everybody has to uncategorically agree with, because clearly that's not the case.
Did you agree in your deposition that the professional opinions you rendered were inconsistent with the Goldwater Rule?
Yeah. My first was inconsistent. If we're saying, It's not made for Hollywood, but I'll even take that Mr. Depp's a public figure. The Goldwater Rule is saying we cannot do any expert witness testimony in our field.
What I'm asking you, sir, is did you comply with the ethical requirements of the APA when rendering the professional opinions that you've rendered today?
It is a requirement of the APA. It is not the requirement of the APA. Secondarily,
so the answer is no.
Secondarily. So all I'm saying to you, that means the whole field of medical legal law is corrupt and unethical for engaging in an act that the APA clearly says we should not do. And the answer is yes, I'm agreeing with that statement.
You're agreeing that the APA would deem your testimony and your professional opinions rendered unethical.
I'm an expert witness. As an expert witness, and solely as an expert witness, that guideline is permitting that from occurring.
And you said the rule was for presidents, right? And
that was initially
figures.
for presidents, yes.
And the name of the rule came from that. But the rule says it is unethical for a psychiatrist to offer a professional opinion about an individual.
If you say this about an individual, any court would have to render an expert witness testimony invalid.
And it's a departure from the methods of the profession to render an opinion without an examination and without conducting an evaluation in accordance with the standards of psychiatric practice, correct?
Well, again, by the way, for the record, intimate partner violence is not a psychiatric diagnosis. I'll start with that. Substance usage by themselves is not a psychiatric diagnosis. If you want to cut to the chase, psychiatry is not a diagnosis of that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. Ergo, I am basically commenting on the things that were brought to me, which are not diagnosis. But an evaluation, if I was going to treat a patient or anyone here, those are the steps I would take. And therefore, what I'm saying is neither IPV nor substance usage, nor narcissistic personality traits a psychiatric diagnosis. And then under the rubric of expert witness testimony, you are saying I acted unethically under the rubric of expert witness testimony. So if you, sir, would like to proceed that expert witnesses are unethical, based on that, I am not going to sit here and disagree with you and waste everyone's time. I think it's fairly obvious. But thank you. Go ahead.
Let's start with the easy question then. Maybe we can...
That was pretty easy. Go ahead.
All right, Doctor, you're going to have to just answer the questions.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Ooh, scolded by the judge. It's not the. It's going to happen 3 times.
You are not rendering any diagnosis whatsoever of Mr. Depp today or ever.
No, I probably would say to you that certainly I would not say narcissistic personality, or I would say traits. Certainly, from what I have read, intimate partner violence is not a diagnosis. So the answer is no for that. Narcissistic personality traits is not a diagnosis. The answer is no. But if you want to tell me that substance use disorder is a psychiatric diagnosis, the answer is yes.
But that wasn't an issue, was it? Whether Mr. Depp used substances?
Oh, so you're saying he's already admitted to the diagnosis?
He's already admitted to the use of the substances. Oh. Narcissistic personality disorder is a DSM-5 diagnosis, correct?
Correct. It's a provisional diagnosis, probably narcissistic personality disorder. But yeah, I do believe that.
Well, but when you say provisional diagnosis, you know the DSM-5 requires, in order to find that diagnosis, 5 of the 9 factors. Mm-hmm. And you haven't done that analysis. You've never made that diagnosis. You've just identified certain factors
that are criteria for the diagnosis.
Right. But you need 5 of 9 to get to the diagnosis. You've already told us that you didn't make a diagnosis. You're just identifying traits, correct?
I'm identifying traits that are consistent with the diagnosis, yes.
Right. Did you testify in deposition that the existence of traits, as opposed to the disorder, doesn't have a correlation with IPV?
If I said traits do not have a correlation with if that's what I said, and I don't remember saying that. Narcissism has a correlation with the diagnosis. Yes, that part's true. Narcissism has correlation with IPV. Again, you're not allowing me to answer. narcissism absolutely has risk factors associated with IPV.
Narcissistic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV, yes or no?
Yes.
And you've previously testified that there is no literature at which you are currently aware that the mere presence of narcissistic traits is a risk factor for IPV.
That's incorrect.
You didn't testify that.
Every resource on intimate partners will support that cluster B traits, where narcissistic personality falls under, is a risk factor for intimate partner.
Any narcissistic trait in and of itself is a risk factor for IPV.
But you are mischaracterizing what I said. And I'm not sure, the thing I don't understand is I'm not sure why we're arguing psychiatry, because I'm telling you what it is.
Dr. Spiegel, you just need to answer the question.
Okay.
Number 2.
Borderline personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
As part of cluster B traits, yes.
Histrionic personality disorder is a risk factor for IPV.
Less so. Significantly less so.
All right. So there's only been one diagnosis in court of personality disorders, correct?
Are you referring to Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard? I'm not sure what you were talking about.
Do you understand that there was a medical examination done of Ms. Heard?
Yes, I did.
Do you understand that the testimony was ultimately that Ms. Heard suffers from 2 personality disorders? Yes or no to my question?
Which was there's only one diagnosis of, Ms. Heard was diagnosed with that.
Yeah. And both of the diagnoses are in cluster B, and both of them are risk factors for IPV.
I'm not allowed to comment on the testing, so therefore, all I can say is that cluster B traits, and I'll tell you what they are. And by the way, I testified this before, which was that, 1, I don't expect perfection from my victims. 2,
My victims!
absolutely there were cluster B traits Ms. Heard had. Absolutely Ms. Heard had cluster
Given
B.
that you've testified to it before, let's move on to a new question.
Okay.
Are you a member of the American Medical Association?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so he's not. But did you hear that last part? I'm glad he zoomed in. Thank you. This is Mike and Alicia have been doing all the
Tell
work.
you what they are. And by the way, I testified this before, which was that, 1, I don't expect perfection from my victims.
Oh my God, for my victims. Well, there were 2 other points. Here was the third moment that I want to make sure. So there's so much to unpack here. We're going to talk about it. We're bringing in Ann Silver. We're going to talk about this in great detail because what's so amazing is this whole Goldwater Rule really is, I think, valid because without Dr. Curry interviewed both. Nobody else did. Tina Hughes, Dr. Hughes, she didn't interview Johnny. So how could she diagnose him so much? It doesn't make any sense. All these people trying to come diagnose Johnny without actually talking. Dr. Curry did speak to Amber. That's a huge thing. And so this guy just coming in trying to just blindly support Amber and tell they were talking about Johnny being the gaslighter and all these things. It was unreal. But here's where it really got even worse. They're like, well, what are you establishing your baseline based on Johnny's slowness?
You compared pirates to the to the depositions given in this case.
Then I apologize for what I said. Then I misspoke.
You misspoke? You didn't make the comparison?
Right now, just a second ago? Just a second ago, I may have said that I misspoke. I apologize, I misspoke.
Okay.
He misspoke. He admitted it. That's a huge. He basically was comparing why Johnny was so slow and out of it. And he was using his baseline, the Pirates movies of Jack Sparrow, as we'll see. He's very cognitive then. He was going off on how he's just reading all his lines from the ear. People are feeding all his lines. Like, well, how do you know? Were you there? No, I'm just being told by one person who told me this, hearsay. And then this was the funniest moment. This is going to get memed, no doubt.
You see him in that movie, Charlie and Chocolate Factory? Did you look at that one when you were comparing his processing speed?
Do I have to answer that question, Your Honor?
You have to answer questions. Yes, sir.
No, you'll be happy to know I didn't see Willy Wonka I didn't see 21 Jump Street when it happened, or whatever it was about. No, I did not.
Okay. He didn't base it off Charlie the Chocolate Factory. Somehow I still don't believe this guy. His credibility's out the window. But he opened up this door that I thought Johnny's team did brilliantly to really just he got very angry. You could just tell the judge had to calm him down twice. And that this was a huge win for Dennison. Wayne, bravo. Camille did a fantastic job with Dr. Moore, and we'll talk about that tonight. But this was just a brilliant takedown, watching this guy just... And I'm sorry I couldn't show you the beginning. We'll show it to you tonight. But even before he got started, he came out right out the gate and just had him unnerved. It was a beautiful thing.
Have you published and lectured on the
Elaine
causes
sets it
and
up.
That's
Yes, I published. I know IPV, blah, blah, blah. This is how it all
sciences
started.
with specific
patients who suffered on
And then he
as a subset
sets up the tone.
violence.
Temporal mandibular disease deals with problems with the jaw. What is temporal
The
mandibular?
temporal mandibular disease problem with
Wayne just...
I'm asking you about IPV specific.
I will reiterate again. You cannot separate intimate partner violence and say
He just
PubMed.
had...
Actually, you go to PubMed right now and Google. Now put PubMed Spiegel DR, and you.
This
will
guy
find
was
that
promoting his
number is
articles, his
72,
website, his
two
book.
ways to be impressed. One is of trauma, but not IPV.
Right. And you've never presented on the topic of IPV specifically.
As a function of trauma and as a function of somatic illness, again, I would say to you that it's part and parcel of these illnesses. So the answer is yes, I have. Okay,
All right.
The answer is yes, I have.
And IPV doesn't appear in your CV at all.
Loading.
If you say it's not in my CV, I will believe you.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that are not in my CV that I do.
And you're not associated with any professional literature on IPV. Is there any professional literature that you've contributed to relative to IPV specifically as opposed to trauma generally?
The answer to the question again, sir, is that you cannot separate this artificial separation you are trying to do between trauma and intimate partner violence.
Asking you about IPV
He talks...
Issues.
There was one...
Does have abuse.
Wayne just crushes him where he's like, so your business is basically about 50% trauma, and you said about 10% of that is IPV. They did such a good job of pointing out that this guy's not a good expert of that at all. He also did an amazing job pointing out this Goldwater Rule, which just put him up so flustered that he had no idea what to do. And this is a very interesting debate. Should they be able to go up there and start diagnosing someone they have not personally evaluated? And this guy's will go, of course you have to. Otherwise, every expert witness would be out the rule. Well, yeah, because this guy gets paid $1,000 a day, sometimes $300 an hour to do this work. So I understand why Dr. Spiegel wants to keep this going. But I don't know. I want to talk to Christopher tonight. I want to talk to Ann Silver. We're going to break this down a lot on our after show. Should this be allowed? Should we still allow these bought experts to come do this? It doesn't seem right to me. I don't know what the solution is, but I want to break down. I want to get your thoughts. What do you think down below? What did you think of Spiegel and Dennison's cross? Hit that subscribe and bell for all alerts if you want to catch more of these highlights of the trial. Smash that like button. Leave a comment down below, your favorite part of this. And make sure not to miss us live after the trial around 5:30, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is usually when we get started. We'll be here live for several hours breaking down today's activities. Lots more coming. Also, we're here and Kate Moss is going to take the stand on Wednesday. Oh my God, get ready, guys. It's gonna get good. The clock is ticking for Amber and her defense. They have now about 6 hours left.